Hi, this is Polly Mertens, and welcome to the webinar, Higher Productivity, Better Performance, presented by Mission Community Services Corporation. I'm pleased to present this topic to you and want to add a lot of value to your life in teaching you more about how both the mindset and the skills of higher productivity people operate in their life. So to start, we'll go over today's objectives. So what we want to present to you today are the insights into the mindset of highly productive and high-performing people. Because in success, 80% is psychology and 20% is skills. So without the right mindset, all the skills in the world won't help you be more productive if your mindset isn't correct. So I'm going to share with you some of the insights of how these highly productive people think, and they have the tools, and knowing the tools and the mindset will get you the results that you're after. I'll teach you on the link between performance and happiness, and a little tip, it's probably not what you think it is. It may be the opposite, and we'll go into that and how performance is driven by happiness. You'll learn some of the powerful routines or habits of high producers. This is that 20%, how they do things more efficiently and more effectively. And lastly, find out what it takes to grow your business with less struggle, effort, and stress. The things that you'll learn today, I would say, I apply both in my life personally and professionally. So listen with both sides of your brain. It's like, how can I apply this to my life to make my life function better and my business or myself as a business person? So these objectives are with both your business and your personal in mind. So let's start with the mindset of highly productive people and how they think. First and foremost is their time is valuable and it's not something to be wasted. They literally put a price tag on their time. I knew a multimillionaire one time who said that he realized that going to the mailbox and checking his mail was costing him money. So he hired someone to check his mail for him. It's amazing. I mean, that seems so far-stretched for some of us, like, well, you just check your mail. But you begin to think differently about how you structure your time, valuing your minutes, valuing your time at work, valuing your time at home and in your personal life. And some people, as they begin to become more successful and can afford it, maybe they hire a maid or a cook, or they have people do things for them, or they outsource some things. So begin to think like that. What is my time worth? And be militant about your time. Don't be wasteful with it. If someone asks you to do something, if it's something that's close to your heart or it helps you achieve one of your objectives, absolutely, that's aligned with your values. But if it's something that detracts and it actually takes away from your time, notice where you're allocating your time. The second thing is they look at their life is not managing time, because it's not about time. We all have the same amount of minutes. They look at managing their priorities, and they prioritize what's most important to them first, and then they manage to those priorities. And the words busy and overwhelmed, which are rampant in today's society, I wish I could just erase them off of our minds, are from lazy prioritization and planning. And so if you can just stop using those words in your everyday life, this is part of the mindset and training your brain that busy and overwhelmed. Busy, how are you? I'm busy. I'm busy. Oh gosh, I'm so overwhelmed with all these things. People who are on top of their priorities and their planning don't say these words. They take ownership of the things that they have to do. They prioritize them and they plan them, and I'll teach you some of those things. But it begins with a mindset shift. So they don't see their life as overly busy or they're overwhelmed. They set goals and they plan ahead before they take action. And so what a lot of people do, and I used to do this, is they just get into action of whatever's in the inbox, whatever they were working on yesterday, whatever somebody comes into their office about, and they just do that. They just take action, action, action. And they think the more action that they're doing, the longer they work, the more hours that they work, they'll get more done. Well, they might be going in a direction that isn't going to actually help them achieve their goals because they haven't thought about what their goals are. So the first step is knowing your goals and then creating a plan before you get into action. Highly productive people set deadlines. One of my favorite lines is, a project will grow to the time allotted. And I tell you, if you don't put a time frame on something, if it's a larger project or if it's a multi-step project, it will start to overwhelm you. It will start to grow and fill in spaces where you really don't need it to. For example, I consult with a lot of people and they say, I want to create a new website, or I'm working on my website. And I say, well, when are you going to have that done? And they have no idea. They have no date. Even if the date is unrealistic or they don't know if it's possible, they haven't even given themselves a deadline. So set deadlines with your projects. And remember, good habits, planning, and discipline improve efficiency. So some people, when they look at some of the things I'm going to share with you in terms of the tactical and how to be more productive, they say, oh, that's going to take so much time. Well, it actually saves time because first you've set goals, you've disciplined yourself to implement them and value your time and allocate it. So good habits, planning, and discipline makes you more efficient. At first, it may look like it doesn't, but I can tell you, having done it for years and years and years, it makes you more efficient than less. And the last one of my favorites, and I'm going to share this in just a slide, is happier leads to greater success. Now, how cool is that? So this is a book that I read recently called The Happiness Advantage. I highly recommend it. Love this book. It's actually produced by a professor at Harvard, and he's now gone on to share this with Fortune 500 companies all around the world. And, you know, just it's a really, he had a class at Harvard, I think it was called the Happy Class or something, and he taught some of these principles. And I wanted to add this to our topic because it was so transformational for me when I got this, that if you can think about these things, because a lot of us work so hard and we work so many hours and we just think if we do more, we'll get greater success. And some of that is true. Hard work is required. But the findings, and there's tons of great research and data, and this book is full of it, and lots of great stories, is that happier people are more efficient, creative, they're higher performing, resilient, and productive. So if you just were happier in your life, how could you figure that out? You could get greater productivity, greater creativity, more successful, lots of things. And that spills over into personal life big time. So depending on if you're a solo entrepreneur, or if you manage people, if you have a large business, happier people, both management, employees, leaders, aka owners, means better performance. You have more profits, sales, customer satisfaction in all areas. The data is overwhelming that the happier people in your business are creating and producing more than the unhappy ones. I think about this story. I used to live in Silicon Valley, and there are tons of companies that you may have heard about or seen videos or read about. Companies like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google that have these really fun working environments where people, you know, they have lunchrooms, or they have toys or foosball or ping pong tables or whatever it is. It's there to help the environment and the people to remain happy because they are taking on a lot of work and they are high producing, but it's that balance. And what the biggest finding in this book is that success does not create happiness. That's like an old story, an old myth in our culture. Oh, that day when I'm successful, I'll be happy. It's actually the opposite. Happiness creates greater success. Just if you take nothing away but that, happiness creates greater success today, your life can be transformed. So know that being happy now, not when the results are achieved, is the goal. It's our goal, why we want those things, why we want the results, why we want the bigger company, the house, the job, the whatever it is, the relationship, is because we think we'll be happy. And actually being happy now will create those results. And a couple tactical things I wanted to share with you from this book before we move on into some of the nitty gritty is that it's important that you not take a break from your work and be thinking about work the whole time because that negates the benefit of the break. So 2 examples that were given in the book, and I've seen these in my own life. One is, I should go for a 15-minute walk during the day. Gosh, it'd be great to get outside, get a little exercise, get some movement. And that is valuable. But if you're thinking about work or that email, or you're fretting about that call that you need to make, or that call that you just had, or that employee interaction you just had, you're negating the benefit of what that break is meant for, which is to sort of de-stress you, relax you, kind of bring your heart rate down, open your heart rate up, right? Or open your heart up to nature or whatever it is if you're getting outside. And the other example is, busy executives come home and in the evening and they say, oh gosh, I've got all these emails I need to check, but I really want to spend time with my family at dinner. So they put their email aside and they say, oh, I'll check it after dinner. But the whole time they're sitting there having dinner with their family, they're thinking about their email. It's not working. It's not effective. It's not having the desired effect. So when you take a break, really take a break. Another tip is I mean, these are just some basics, but getting enough sleep, having good eating habits, celebrating your wins, like acknowledging yourself for the work you are producing, doing what you enjoy creates happiness, right? So taking good care of yourself. I slipped this one in as something that I learned a couple of years ago, and I just think it's so important to remember. So sitting is the new smoking. What that means is smoking was like the deadly killer until people, we got the data and we realized that smoking was killing people. Well, sitting is now creating a lot of disease. So I just want to remind you to integrate those breaks and movement during your day, because it will lead to better performance in your health and in your happiness. And if you have employees, or if you have partners or people that you are responsible for, one of the other factors that came in from this book is that small rewards and words of appreciation, meaning thank you, or you did a good job, or I appreciate you getting that to me on time, or thank you for staying late, it improves performance. So don't go without acknowledging with small rewards and words of appreciation. I'll just give you a tiny little story, if I can, from that book. It was literally, there were some doctors who were asked to give medical recommendations, or prescribe people's diagnosis for a disease, and they were given a lollipop as the reward. And the ones who thought they were getting a lollipop after they made the diagnosis, not before, but after, actually did a better job of giving a diagnosis. My gosh, I want to give my doctor a lollipop when I go see him next time. But anyway, so just know that small rewards, words of appreciation, improve performance for the people around you. Now let's start to talk about the transition between the mindset and the actual doing, or the steps, the 20%. So a highly productive person thinks about the result that they want. What are they after? What's that goal? Is it selling new customers? Is it entering into a new market? Is it increasing sales? Is it hiring more employees? Whatever it is, they think about the result and they think, why do they want this? They really get in touch with that. They do those two steps before they take action. They don't just start hiring people. They need to think, what is this new employee, or what is this new marketing plan going to give us? Why are we doing this? And they're very goal oriented. They start with the end in mind. So goals, if you have them in your life personally or in your business, highly encourage you to start both near term and long term. I have friends who have 20-year life plans that they know where they want to be in 20 years from now. I have a friend multimillionaire, who recently bought his first airplane. And that was one of his goals, is he wanted to own an airplane. And he did. And it's because he planned for it. He set it out as a goal, as a carrot, if you will, in front of him, and he worked towards it. So if you're not setting annual goals, at least quarterly goals, monthly, weekly, or daily, then you're working inverse. You're actually taking too much action before you know where you're going. So we want to turn that upside down. Weekly planning, daily activity managing. So what I'm going to show you in a minute is a little bit of how I manage my day, and how that ties in with weekly planning is on Sundays. I look at the prior week, both from a personal and a business perspective, because my work and my personal life are very intermixed. As a life coach and a business consultant, I have a lot of balance. So I look at what was I aiming to achieve last week based upon my monthly goal. So I always know what is my monthly goal and my quarterly goal. I break that down into this week. What do I need to get done this week? What are my top outcomes this week to complete? And then I break that into my weekly activity management. So I say, I need to call that person that day. I need to follow this step on Tuesday, and that needs to be done on Thursday. And I sort of trickle it down into my planner, and you'll see that in a minute. They determine their top 1 to 3 highest outcomes for the day in advance, every day. So either the night before, before opening an email inbox or checking their voicemail in the morning, or perhaps the night before, depending on what habit starts to work best for you. But the night before or the first thing each morning, they say, what are the top 3 highest outcomes that must happen today? So they think about that before they just launch into action or open their email, and let whatever's at the top of the list just is what they start doing. They allocate their time to tasks, and then they put their task in their daily calendar. I'm saying that here now, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But they allocate and figure out, how much time does this task need, and when can I do it? When can I complete it? And then they prioritize tasks and projects using something, for example, like COVEYS time management grid. And I'll show you what that is here in just a second. So if you're familiar with Stephen Covey, the original maker of day timers and day planners, I forget which one, but he talked about, if you look at the left-hand side here, this chart, Your activities will typically fall into 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The top are important. Is this activity important? Yes. Or is it not important? No, on the right. Is it urgent? So you can have, yes, it's important, and yes, it's urgent. That's a high level activity that may need to happen in the next hour, 10 minutes, today, this week. Or is it not so urgent? So maybe it can happen later today, later this week, or not this week. And if it's not important and it's not urgent, you should try to eliminate it. So what you want to do is you want to identify first, what are the things that need to happen today? And then decide, is this urgent? Does this need to happen, like now? Do I need to email that person back before 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. or by the end of the day? What is my time frame on it? And then on the right-hand side, they prioritize it top to bottom based upon those quadrants. So they say the urgent and important things go first on the list. So that would be in your top 1, 2, or 3, for example. The important but not urgent, that could be a level 2 or 3 thing, meaning it needs to happen earlier in the day, or maybe it needs to happen today if possible, but it's not urgent. And you follow that all the way through. So that's how their to-do list, if you will look during the day. So let me give you an example, and I hope you can see this. So this was, I think, my day on Monday. And so I put together all the things, and there were more things actually, but I just sort of try and make it so you could read it. These are the activities that I had for that day based upon my weekly plan and appointments I had scheduled. So you can see here I had a phone call at 8:30, 11:30. We were actually practicing for this webinar, which was fun. 1 o'clock, I had a counseling appointment, 3 o'clock, a counseling appointment, and then some emails and personal things that I was attending to. So with all of this in mind, first step was, okay, how long are these things going to take me? Or what do I anticipate these things? So half an hour for this phone call, 1 hour for the webinar, et cetera, et cetera. And then I prioritize. And some of this aligns with my personal values. You see, I put some of my morning routines and my exercise first thing in the morning because it's a priority to me each day. And then these are my business activities, and these are the most important because they're phone calls or appointments that are a priority. These things, the number 2s lower down, weren't as urgent or as important, but I did want to attend to them, and et cetera, et cetera. And so what I did from there is on this right-hand side, this was how I laid out my day. So this is in my day timer. So I had my first phone call that you see came from this item. It was anticipated to take half hour. Then I had allowed a little bit of time for notes and write-up after that phone call. I had a break before my next appointment. So drive time was to come down to Mission Community, and then a little prep time before we actually got on the webinar and had practice, a little lunch time, and then I had my first counseling appointment, needed time for notes. So I took all of these activities, decided how much time they were going to take, and then I broke up my day accordingly. So that's time blocking and daily planning. And I recommend that you do this each day, either at night at the end of the day, which is actually really good because the priorities are top of mind as you end your day, or first thing in the morning. I prefer to do it the night before, so I don't wake up and go, what am I going to do today? I already know in advance what that looks like. So a little more on the habits of highly productive people. So that first one, that time blocking and daily planning, is one of the habits, and I recommend that you start to integrate that and see how you could start to look at your to-do list differently. So, I come upon people that I counsel and their to-do list has 30 things and they all look important. They all look urgent. And when we really break it down, you can decide what is on fire, what's most on fire. And a couple other little habit tips I want to give you here. So on the left-hand side, you see write things down, get them out of your head. One of the things that makes people feel that sense of overwhelm that I talked about earlier is our mind can only grasp and hold on to about 2 things. So it's 1, 2, 3 too many. It just goes into chaos. And that's why we feel overwhelmed. So write those things down. Even if you don't have your to-do list in front of you, just write down like, oh yeah, I got to remember that. Like I have my day timer with me all the time. And if something comes up, I just write it on that page for that day, just so I don't lose it and I don't keep it in my mind. And I put it in one place. So if it's in my day timer, I will see it, especially if it's in that day. I'm looking at that throughout my day. That's my go-to one list. I've done to-do lists many times in Word documents or on Google Docs or whatever works for you, Evernote, it doesn't matter. Find your perfect place, but have one place for your to-do lists. we won't have it in this webinar, but just know that you don't want everything for your life. You don't want your 20-year life goals on your one list. Your to-do list is, what you're managing, in the next week, or projects that you're working on and addressing currently. So chunking time blocks with anticipated breaks, and I'll show you this diagram in just a second, but email blocking during the day versus constantly checking when email arrives. There's been so many studies about how when we are constantly checking email throughout the day, it's a complete distraction. And I'll show you in just a second what that looks like and what that's created by, but you want to avoid multitasking. And I would say for most people, phone calls, well, maybe not phone calls these days, but texting, instant messaging, emails are our biggest distraction, and how we're multitasking and not getting the biggest bang from our creative mind. So set aside blocks of hours to work interrupted. So if there's a project or something that you really want to focus on that takes more than 15 minutes, a quick email or something like that, sure, you don't need to block chunk a single email, but blocking time to check your email. So set aside 30 minutes or an hour, depending on what your business would allow. So some people, you only need to check email once a day and it's sufficient. Some people twice a day, morning and evening, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. But if you're checking, if you have that notification from your emailer constantly pinging you, then you're just interrupting your day. So if we look to the right here, I've seen this. I had trouble finding a little graph, but I've seen this before in workshops that I've attended, and I tried to recreate it. And basically, on the left-hand side, you'll see that it's productivity and performance. So more productivity as we go higher on here, and this is time on the task, right? So for example, a task could be maybe you're developing your marketing plan, or you're writing a blog, or you're doing something that takes, a little more time than that 15 minutes. And what happens in the brain is, and how we work, is we have about 15 minutes that we're ramping up, and we're getting more productivity. We're sort of focusing, we're stopping the chatter of other things that are going on in our life. And the brain is going, oh, okay, I get what we're doing here. And then you get to that kind of productive peak, and you have about a productive peak period. This is your optimal output period. So if you're checking emails or text or instant messengers are constantly coming in during this period, bloop, you go right back down. So you're trying to give yourself the amount of time that project needs, or as best you can give yourself, so you can get through this ramp up period, maximize your output period, your creativity, your productivity level. All the magic happens up in this realm. And then you get down to the ramp down period, right? So then it takes 15 minutes to sort of, close your writing, or finish that task, organize things, set schedules for when you're going to do it or complete it, or what are the next action items on it. So just remember this chart when you think about those emails coming in throughout the day. So if those emails are interrupting you, ramping up, you're back down here. So you're really working in this zone instead of this zone. So I hope that helps you just find a way to chunk your days better. And what I want to say about that is, it's important in that chunking period, or in that creating those blocks, is that you reduce or remove, if you can, interruptions and distractions. And I get that in some companies and some business environments, you have to be available for phone calls and maybe text or instant messengers, but you might be surprised. Those people could probably be okay without you. So can you turn the text off? Can you turn the alert off? Can you, log out of instant messenger, turn your phone on D&D, right? Definitely turning off the email notification. If somebody's willing to email you, they'll call you if they need you urgently, right? Meetings and pop-bys, can you schedule those? Meeting, meaning you need to go somewhere. Can you schedule those and then have time blocks around that? But minimize the pop-bys. People just stopping in your office or stopping by, say hello, or ask you questions. Tell people, or put a note on your door that I'm not available, or I'm working on a project. Food and drink. So when you're sitting down to do that, and these last two kind of apply to those of us that work at home or work remotely, the last thing you need to be distracted by is, oh, I'm thirsty. And then you get up and you go to the kitchen, or you need to go get another cup of coffee if you're at Starbucks or something. That's just killing your ramp amp time, right? So get your food, drink, all that, get yourself all taken good of bathroom, all that stuff. And chores, one of the things about working at home is, for women especially, is chores are always available. So not not having them readily available, or just telling yourself, you know what, I'm going to take this time, that dusting, that cleanup, that organizing I need to do, it will be there. I'll come back to it. And that goes a little bit into this next one, and that is maximizing your environment for the work type. And I love Nicole, who's on from Mission Community, had a great example of this. We were talking the other day, and she told me about, and I may get these examples wrong, but you get the idea. And that is, she said, you know, I have a chair at home for reading, and I read really well there. And then I have another place in my home office, and I write really well there, or I design really well there. But I like to go to a coffee shop, and I need to be creative and work on, you know, graphic design or websites and you know, more fun things. So she literally leaves her home and goes to a coffee shop because she feels she works better there. So find what works best for you. I just had a client that I was consulting this morning who likes the quiet environment. She finds that at home or in her store, there's just too many distractions, too much going on. And she's looking for a place to just go and sit and be quiet. So that coffee shop wouldn't work for her to get things done. So find what environment optimizes the type of work you need to do, and then make that a part of your plan as you're blocking those chunks of time. And the last thing, keep your workspaces clutter-free and well organized. This includes your email inbox, desktop, drawers, office, meeting rooms, anywhere, because the mind will get distracted, easily distracted, much more so for women. But when you have a lot of clutter or a lot of things in your way, or your space isn't clear, it's just not optimized for high productivity. If you need a bigger space, create it. There's, you know, I see a lot of people working in small spaces, or they're just around piles of paperwork, or their inbox is just overflowing, and it just creates that overwhelm. So taking those times to keep these things clutter-free and well organized will maximize your productivity as well. So in summary, to wrap us up here, I really want to emphasize that it's important, again, that you value your time. Your time is valuable. And what if you put a price on each hour that you worked, or every 15 minutes that you worked, and you doubled the price that you make right now? And if someone asked you to do something that really wasn't aligned with your values or didn't help you with your goals, and you said, gosh, that's going to cost me from making this amount of money over here, if I do that, you'd be much more likely to say no, right? You would be more militant with your time. I encourage you to set goals, practice planning ahead, and stick to your plan. This takes new muscles, new habits. Not many people are used to the reverse. Instead, they just get into action and, you know, hope it works out. You know, they don't set a deadline for something, and it's like, well, I'm just going to plug away at this until I get it done. And instead, set a goal, set a deadline. I want to have my website up, written, beautiful, all done, accepting PayPal, you know, whatever it is, by January 15th. All right, and then how am I going to plan ahead for that? And then stick to the plan. And then you chunk that down into what do you need to be doing each week and each day. So work your plan. And remember, as I said earlier, happy leads to success. Success doesn't create happy. So being happy now, being happy today in your work life, giving yourself, you know, pats on the back, taking good care of your health, you know, breathing, getting up out of your chair, getting some movement, putting those distractions like email or to-do lists aside when you have family time, or you're going to give yourself time for a workout, or you're just sitting down with your family to have dinner. Prioritize your tasks each day, morning or evening, and know what must get done daily in advance. So I encourage you, my strategy and how I like to do it is the night before I go to bed, or after dinner, at the end of my workday, whatever that looks like, I look at my day timer. I know what my tasks are for tomorrow. I look at what maybe didn't get done today. It allows me to bundle those and find places for them tomorrow, or move them into the future, or delete them, or delegate them. But I plan it in advance. So I wake up in the morning and I feel on top of my day, and I know what must get done. Like, I know what I'm committed to getting done. And you have to be flexible. I teach this to people, and you know, it's not black and white, right? It's not to say, I was working with a realtor one time and she said, well, a lead comes in, I have to manage that lead. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a priority. And especially if it's time sensitive, it's a lead for a house or something that's urgent. But you at least know what your priorities are, so you can stand with that person. And after they said, oh, you know, the email comes in or the phone call comes in, you look at what you had planned to get done that day and you readjust your priorities. And you figure out what's going to get done, or what's maybe not going to get done. Or maybe you need to say no to this opportunity or this phone call. Likely not, especially if it's business like that. but knowing in advance what must get done each day will just empower you as you go into your day. Again, work where you work best and minimize those distractions or interruptions. Instant messenger, text, phone calls, pop-bys, chores, food, drink, like just find a place, find your optimal workspace and work where you work best so you can get to that optimal ramping time, creating those time chunking blocks. Stop the multitasking, stop the checking email regularly so that you get the maximum benefit of your brain's creativity, open up access to that higher productivity levels that happen after those first 15 minutes. All of this is designed to help you work smarter, not harder, because the last thing that I want anyone to be doing is just putting in hours. If we work just harder at it, I put more hours and more hours. I have lots of people that I know that do that because I don't think they're as clear about what their goals and priorities are each day. And so it's causing them to have to work harder instead of smarter. So I want to thank you for listening in. If you listened live, thank you for joining us for this first of Mission Community's live Higher Productivity, Better Performance webinar Wednesday. And if you have any information, if you have any questions for me, my information is here on the left. This is Polly Mertens. I've been your happy presenter and happy to discuss this topic. You can see my information and contact. My website is there if you would like to contact me directly. Mission Community Services is a women's business center here on the Central Coast. We'd love to help you. We do consulting one-on-one. There are classes available. I'm not sure how you heard about this webinar, but I'm glad you're here. Hope you got a lot of value from it. And we're really delighted to help you grow your business. Thank you.